Hello and welcome to another video. So we are covering a Sparta rotation deck. Spartacus, pretty great card now at the moment. I mean, he's really quite a solid one in Unlimited especially, but in rotation he's finally got some support with Master Dealer, and I really wanted to give this card a good go. Unfortunately our Unlimited video of course didn't get to showcase this deck much as far as Master Dealer went, because it does have Altered Fate, which is straight up a better card overall. But Master Dealer in rotation does a wonderful job, even if it feels a little clunky. Ideally, getting Spartacus and then 3 Master Dealers is definitely the way to do it. But that doesn't always work out, and sometimes you do have to drag games out just that little bit extra, which, of course, isn't impossible, but can be difficult. So this deck is a very mixed bag as far as games, but as far as a meme deck, definitely worth a shot. So we're going to get right into it and take a look. So our first matchup is actually a sword versus a sword. A lot more people are running a more mid-range variant of sword, of course, going for those storm effects and the new 10 drop, but personally I think Sparta sword is just a lot more fun. By no means would I call it a competitive deck, but as far as being a fun, enjoyable meme style deck, definitely worth it. It's not easy to win games, of course, but when you do, it feels quite satisfying. So Grand Auction is one of those cards that is just a very cheap draw. I really like using it when you do have a couple, since you only really got to sacrifice one card to get its effect to go off multiple times. Fortunately I did misplay and accidentally click the wrong card. I should have definitely clicked the Age-Worn Weaponry, but sometimes a misclick does happen. It's not the hugest impact on this deck in particular, but definitely does not feel that great. So we are lacking any kind of big substantial play, which is a bit disappointing. But we are going to be able to go for a pretty comfortable Aether. In the next probably turn or so, we may be able to use the next turn for Spartacus. We may save it and go for Master Dealer. Not really sure which way to play that right now, especially since we got Arms Dealer, which, I mean, considering it gives me more draw power, might be the better play, especially when I can also sacrifice Great Sword to, of course, go face. Well, not face, but to the 3/3, stopping them going face. I'm thinking ahead a little too much when I'm thinking of this matchup, but it's not really that bad. So Aether is going to pull out draw. It's probably the best way to use that card, either go for Spartacus or for draw. I typically like to go for draw more because, of course, getting that is more important. Spartacus you can play later in the game. Ideally you want it on 6, but if you can't, playing it turn 7 to 9 is usually acceptable. There, of course, Dancing Blade, and we end up with Spartacus. At least we get to set up on a nice board, and we still have one play point to use if we want to, which, considering we're probably going for Master Dealer next turn, is definitely worthwhile. And since we end up with double Master Dealer, that is the perfect hand. Since Master Dealer can select Master Dealer, you can use both of them pretty effectively. If you end up with 3, you're at a loss because, of course, you're going to be sacrificing one of them. But at least in this situation, only having 2 in hand is much more beneficial. I probably honestly could have went for the Chromatic Duel there though. That might have been a slightly better play. Not that it would have made a huge difference, but this card did a wonderful job at defending itself. And these Dragonites aren't really a problem. So now, the 2 things I like to kind of prioritize when I am using, of course, Master Dealer if I don't have another one in hand, is Storm Followers, Discard Followers, sorry, not Storm, our Rush Follower, or our Discard Followers. They're the only 2 I really like to use if I don't have another Master Dealer and I'm not needing to keep a Spartacus. Sometimes I will keep Usurping if that's a good option, but it really does depend. By the looks of this, we are going to manage to win this game, since we do already have another Master Dealer, and that should be enough to hopefully close this out. Even though it was very close in the end here. I believe they could have went for 5 damage at best with that hand there. Although, if they had a bit more planning, I think they might have been able to pull off just slightly better, but too late now, as we do win the game. And for our next match, we're up against Haven. Definitely a strong deck. As far as decks go at the moment, I've definitely seen the most being Haven and Portal, followed up closely by stuff like Forest. Not a big surprise, they're doing quite well right now. Forest getting the, of course, aggro card it needed to really push it through the Stratosphere as far as damage goes. Haven getting a pretty decent board flood card. And then, of course, the one and only Portal getting a extra finisher to add to their already decent Omen deck. So, Grand Auction, since we do have double Spartacus, no point needing two of them. And Magic Dealer with Age Worn is basically a free draw. And since our opponent hadn't set up any followers from here, we're actually looking at a very, very comfy board to sit on. This is a little more tricky though, since I don't have anything to get rid of. Arms Deal is probably the best move, since getting a normal draw versus drawing a specific spell or amulet, usually I'll prefer that most of the time when I'm aiming for cards. Even if Age Worn Weaponry would have been a nice draw. Now, Saint has. This actually isn't too hard to deal with. I am going to have to sacrifice something pretty much either way though. But I mean, at least we're going to wipe out the majority of the board and set up for a pretty good Spartacus. We're also going to leave ourselves, of course, with the 4-2, which is a threat that needs to be dealt with. But Black Inscripture, that does that pretty well. At least they did only leave up the one follower. And now that we have Spartacus set up, and we also have our Master Dealer, we're already in the setup for our lethal. We just need to be able to continually draw off this Master Dealer until we reach the bottom of our deck. It's really the only aim now. And this Unicorn Knight is not a good start. At least we are going to set up a really good ward to block this turn. So deciding what to keep wasn't easy, but I decided to keep Fatal, as I can use that with a Master Dealer very easily. So I can actually use them on turn 8. Unlike if I had of course went for any other card in that lineup. Now this board is a little trickier. This is not a board that you want to leave up too much, but being able to deal with the biggest threat on it at least does help us out, and the Master Dealers are pretty decent wards to hold off again. And next turn we actually have a chance to go for our Rush plus our Master Dealer and save an extra Rush as well, so we are going to be able to defend ourselves pretty nicely. We're only really going to lose out this turn. Which, while disappointing, isn't entirely bad. Now, because I expect them to clear this ward, keeping the Rush was definitely the right move. With only 5 cards left in our deck, we only need to probably survive one more turn after this to finish things off. If they don't go too crazy, although looks like they're having a very good turn. And now we want to deal with as much of this as we can. Luckily for us, Chromatic Duel is a really good option, especially with 2 of them. And we're actually going to be able to sacrifice most of this here. While also flooding our board to protect ourselves for the next turn. As long as they don't have another Zealot, we should be okay. With only 3 cards in hand, Saint Has is a very good draw, but still not good enough. Assault Priest is a bit better. Oh, and Ruler of Storms, that's harsh. They definitely made a very impressive board very quickly. At least to our advantage, we can clear 2 of these cards, set up enough draw power. And even though we're not going to lose the entire board, we are going to pretty much guarantee our safety at this point. And double Grand Auctions in our deck definitely help. especially since Usurping Spineblade was the last card. And getting Goblet, another layer of protection that is really going to help us out. So with just 2 bunnies and no real way to go for 12 damage, we pretty much win this game. Although seeing 5 bunnies on board is the cutest thing ever. But our top deck for our final draw wins us the game. If we hadn't have won that turn, we would have been in some real trouble, but fortunately for us, perfect setup in advance. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I do have a lot of fun playing Sparta decks. Again, probably not the most competitive deck out there, but still pretty reasonable play. If you've got the legendaries to, of course, build this deck, I would recommend giving it a go. Warrior is definitely a very handy card. I would probably run 3 if I had 3 of them, but I was pretty comfortable just running the 2 that did a pretty nice job. Confront Adversary, didn't really use much, used in one game that I still ended up losing, but at least it's not a bad card overall. And everything else in the deck is usually draw focused or just buying you a turn focused, with Crescent Blade being the exception, probably one of the few cards I didn't use a lot. So you could probably drop him down to 2, maybe even 1 and mess around with some numbers, but that's up to you guys, as this was just a pretty fun deck to play and was interesting enough. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.